Snipers, you have to see what's happening to the Bitcoin price today as we are fighting to stay above the 50-period moving average on the 4-hour chart, and we've already broken our major support at 49,700. I want to talk about whether or not Bitcoin is going to continue to see downside and potentially come down to retest this 50-day moving average, which is now above the previous all-time high of 41,950, or if we're going to see a reversal back to the upside. And then we'll take a look at what's happening to Ethereum. You can see we are still fighting to stay at this channel support level. And then when we look at the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart on the weekly, you can see we do have a potential reversal here at the 50-week moving average. We do have a potential bounce if we get confirmation above the 20-week moving average. But most importantly, what I want to talk about today is what's happening to traditional markets. You can see with the DXY, exactly like we predicted, we are seeing strength now above the 100-day moving average for the first time since we've seen the bearish pressure on the dollar, and this is having a direct effect on markets. It's exactly what I've been telling you guys to watch. I want to talk about what this means for the US dollar as well as other markets like the stock market and cryptocurrency market. You can see the S&P 500 already below the 50-day moving average, looking like it wants to come down to the 100-day moving average. And then international markets are also bleeding across the board. I want to talk about exactly what's happening to the markets today. You guys are watching the Snipers channel. My name is Naeem Al-Abeidi. If you appreciate this content, remember to like this video. First and foremost, I want to talk about what's happening to Bitcoin because we have a lot to cover today. And what you'll notice here is that $49,700 level, which was a major area for us, has acted as a resistance and as a support, but now we've broken down from this level. We know this is a major level since we bounced on this level, since we broke out from this level, and now you can see we're breaking down from this level. And so at this point for me, the $49,700 level is still a very key area, but I want you guys to realize that we are fighting to stay above the 50-period moving average on the 4-hour chart. And if we start closing hourly candles below this 50-period moving average, there is some potential downside on the table. And I'm going to be the umpire today as best as possible and just talk about what's happening at face value. So disregard the bullish or bearish bias today, as I will never give you guys a biased opinion. This is going to be an extremely neutral analysis. So first I want to cover the downside because of course we have already seen many hourly candles close below 49,700, and so at this point 44,800 comes back on the table, which is sitting right below the weekly and the monthly open. And so at this point there is a very clear schematics forming for me, and if Bitcoin is able to come back above 49,700 US dollars and close hourly candles back above this level, then at that point we could switch our bias back to bullish and assume that 57,400 is still on the table. However, for the downside, if we start to break this 50-period moving average, which is sitting right at that $47,800 level right now, then the 200-period moving average on the 4-hour chart comes into the equation, and that's around that $46,000 level, which is closer to 44,800 than it is to 49,700. And so my opinion is, if we continue to see weakness here and we start closing hourly candles below the 4-hour 50-period moving average, which is right at that $47,800 level, then we will most likely come back to test 44,800. But the positive news of the downside right now is the fact that the 50-day moving average has finally been able to get above the previous all-time high at 41,950. And this is something that I was expecting to happen, and exactly like we predicted, this has already happened. And now that the 50-period moving average is above 41,950, if we see the downside start to unfold, this is going to be my first target, and it is right at that $42,000 area right now. And if we see volume come in at this 50-period moving average, then there is a potential we could see a very nice bounce to the upside for Bitcoin from the 50-period moving average, just like we saw here when we first tested the 50-period moving average on the 27th of January, and that was followed by major upside. And so that's going to be the downside target for now. Of course, if we start to see a more violent breakdown and we start to see more volume come in to the sell side at the 50-day moving average, then 38,000 would be the next support level for Bitcoin. And then of course that would change the whole scenario and everything would look different at face value if that happens. So I will cover that if that scenario gets to that point. But for now, we want to just watch the 50-day moving average as a potential downside target at 42,000 US dollars, and just realize that out of all assets, when we look at the S&P 500 and international markets and even gold and silver, Bitcoin right now is the top performing asset, and it's still the most bullish asset because of the fact that it is above all three major moving averages on the daily chart. And so that's just some food for thought. And then when we look at the 4-hour chart, Ichimoku cloud, this is something that we were covering. You can see we did see a slight rejection here where we wanted to see support, and now we are inside of the red cloud. I'm not going to be too worried if we stay inside this red cloud. If we start to come below it, which as I mentioned earlier is going to be right at that first downside target of the 200 period moving average on the 4-hour chart, then that would be more concerning to me. Of course, at that point, the 50-day moving average really would come into play, and that would be a very likely scenario to come down to that 50-day moving average right around this area to form a lower low. And what would be very interesting to me is if Bitcoin comes down to the 50-day moving average and does form a lower low. Listen to what I'm about to say. If that happens, I'm going to be watching Ethereum, because Ethereum is in the early stages of a potential reversal when we look at the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart. And the confirmation of seeing strength with Ethereum is going to be is if Bitcoin does come down to form a lower low, but Ethereum comes down, and let's say it decides to form a higher low at the weekly and monthly open around 1422, just below the previous all-time high at 1440, while Bitcoin has already hit the 50-day moving average. If that exact scenario plays part, then I think the better play would be Ethereum to get in wherever that higher low is going to form. The confirmation will be when Bitcoin hits the 50-day moving average, wherever Ethereum is at that point. If it's above 1290, which is the current low, then in my opinion, Ethereum would form a higher low to potentially see more upside than Bitcoin, because of the fact that the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart is in the early stages of a potential reversal. And I say potential because we are currently above the weekly and monthly open, which is bullish at face value. But when we look at the daily chart, we are still below all three daily moving averages. And so what I'd really like to see alongside of Bitcoin coming down in US dollar price, if that happens, is the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart getting above the 100 and 200 period moving average, and that's sitting right at that 33,200 Satoshi area. And so that would be the downside potential. Of course, when it comes to the upside potential, Ethereum is going to follow what Bitcoin does. We're currently struggling to stay at this 50-day moving average for Ethereum. That is some food for thought, but realize that the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart is showing that we could potentially see more strength for Ethereum if we see a continuation and a confirmation of that reversal above the 100 and 200 period moving average for Ethereum. So that's really the schematics that I'm watching for Bitcoin and Ethereum, and realize that with others' dominance, exactly like we've been talking about, we are still seeing strength with some altcoins. You can see we are still forming higher highs towards our target of 12.15% dominance on others' dominance. We are way and above this ascending support level. So as long as we stay above this, even if we come down and bounce here, I'm still going to be very bullish on altcoins. And you guys know, for those in our Discord group, that I am trading a lot of altcoins right now. And let's look at what's happening to the DXY, because Bitcoin dominance is just sitting at the levels that we've seen it sit at for the last few weeks. But the DXY is what's moving right now. And you can see today we saw a daily candle breach the 100-day moving average. And then when we look at the weekly chart, you can see we've also breached the 20-week moving average and this channel resistance. And so we have to assume that there is a potential reversal coming for the DXY, as this is the first time we've broken above the 20-week moving average since May of 2020. And so realize that since we've seen a massive bear market for the DXY, at any point we could see a sharp reversal and a relief to the upside like we did here in 2018, where this initiated the bear market for cryptocurrencies. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but what I am saying is we have to monitor whether or not this is a fake out or if this is a true potential reversal for the DXY, as we've formed a higher low and now we're forming a higher high, and it's looking like it wants to trend to the upside. And the one aspect of this that I don't like is the fact that US oil is also seeing a lot of upside on the day that the dollar is seeing a lot of upside, actually breaking this major resistance that dates back to 2019. And usually oil is an inverse relationship against the dollar. And so one of these assets are faking us out right now, whether that's going to be oil or if that's going to be the DXY. I don't know that yet because it's too premature and this has just happened today, but that is some food for thought to keep in mind. If US oil starts to really break out from this resistance and continue to the upside, there's a potential that the DXY does continue to come back down, and this was just a fake out. But we know that there's a lot of weight on the 20-week moving average and the 200 period moving average and the 100 period moving average. And so at this point, because we are above the 100-day moving average, we have to assume that the 200 period moving average comes in as a potential target for the DXY. And if the dollar comes to 92.80, which is where the 200 period moving average is currently sitting, then that could have a tremendous effect on asset prices to the downside, because that's usually what happens. But right now, we're in a weird scenario where we see oil showing strength along with the US dollar, which usually has an inverse relationship. And then when we look at traditional markets, they are essentially reacting to the DXY seeing strength right now by breaking down from the 50-day moving average. And so we also have to assume at face value right now that we are heading towards the 100 period moving average for the S&P 500, and that's just what's happening at face value. Of course, if we start to come back above the 50 period moving average tomorrow or the next day, then that could have been the worst of it, and then we see a continuation of the upside. But that would also assume that the dollar is faking us out and that we come back down even though we've already broken out. And so we're in this weird paradigm right now where we know traditional markets are reacting to the downside against the dollar's strength, and it's not just S&P 500. In Hong Kong, we're below the 50-day moving average. In Shanghai, we are below the 50-day moving average. In Japan, we are coming towards the 50-day moving average. And then the Euro 100, you can see, is showing a little bit more strength, but the Euro 100 was one of the only markets that hasn't recovered from the March highs yet. And so we haven't seen the prices that we saw in late February, early March for the Euro 100. So this is really just kind of an oddball when it comes to traditional markets. But the real markets like the S&P 500 are showing weakness below the 50-day moving average. And the last time that happened, you can see we did bounce. So we have to keep that as a food for thought. But in the past, we've also come down to the 100 period moving average. And we also have to realize the fundamentals here with the new stimulus being passed, as well as with us approaching the 1-year anniversary of the stock market bottom, which was March 24th, around that time frame, or March 24th. So we're heading towards that time where, of course, a lot of people have fear when they realize that last year around this time, we did see a bloodbath in the market. So those are just things you have to keep in mind. But at this point, what I want you guys to watch for right now is going to be, number one, the DXY, of course, but with Bitcoin is going to be that $49,700 level. If we get above that, that's the bullish case, because we know on the weekly chart, that's going to put us in a position where we can climb up these 2 weekly candles. But until then, if we're below 49,700, then we are inside of the range that could also take us potentially down to 38,000, because once again, if price action is on the upper area of this range, then these two candles become open field. If we stay in this area, then this candle, as you can see, stretches us all the way down to 38,000, and now we're playing in this field, not this field, if we're below 49,700. That's why it's such a critical level. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this analysis. I know we went everywhere and there was a lot to look at today. I do want to give away one of my favorite books on investing, Trading Psychology, the Bible for Traders. If you want to win this book, all you have to do is comment below and share this video, and I'll choose a winner on our video tomorrow, and also choose a winner for our video yesterday on our video tomorrow. But I just wanted to wrap up this video by saying, Continue to watch the DXY, watch the $49,700 level for Bitcoin. Those are the two key areas to watch right now. And the next few days are really going to tell us a lot. The next week is going to give us a very good reading on what the direction of this market is going to be. So stay tuned on our channel. And with that, thank you guys for watching. Enjoy your weekend. It's going to be an exciting time. Remember, the weekends are the most manipulated in the crypto markets due to CME futures being closed. So be careful. And with that, thank you guys for watching. Snipers out.